And welcome everybody to the In-Secure-Ity Podcast. I know we're a little bit late. I had to get just a little bit late start, but I'm Drew Thompson, and today we're going to tackle a couple of topics with my good buddy John. One is the recent Snowflake breach, and I think breaches in general. And then we'll also dive into work-life balance and doing some other things around that. Maybe a little bit shorter today. It's got just the two of us, and I know we started late, so we may end a little late. May still end on time. We'll see how it goes and how the conversation goes. Last point before we dive in. If you're listening now and you haven't clicked follow on whatever platform, please click that follow button. Like I said in previous podcasts, it makes a huge difference to us to see the follower count grow and increases the visibility in those platforms as well. It takes a second for you, means a lot to us. Click the follow button. All right. Hey, John, so normally we do the little catch-up thing. It's just the two of us, so this will probably go pretty quick. But what exciting things have happened to you since the last podcast? And I'm not counting the recording we did last night.
I have a graduate child.
Nice.
Yeah, so I went to my second high school graduation ever last night, and
Not your second high school graduation.
the second one I've ever been to
yeah.
in my whole life. Last night, so we kicked her out.
Oh no.
And well, no, it's okay. She has a car, so she's fine.
With the car, we've been talking about getting fixed.
Yeah, it doesn't run, but I mean, it'll start. I mean, okay, you shouldn't drive it right now. It'll run though, so if it gets cold, yeah, she's good. So yeah, that was kind of interesting.
That's exciting.
Yeah. It was also weird because it was like in the middle of the day. It was like 3:00, and I think my graduating class was like 150 or something like that. Hers is like 500 and something.
Jeez.
And so they had it in the Raleigh Convention Center at like 3, I think it was, or something like that. And they had to be there by like 2:30. And, it's like, I don't know, a good 45 to an hour from our place. So basically I had to take off half day, which was just weird.
Wait, it was in the middle of the week?
Oh yeah, it was yesterday.
Wait,
yeah.
What?
So weekday, middle of the day. Well, okay, it was at like 3 something like that. But getting there, everything prep, blah blah blah.
Yeah,
basically,
yeah. You're basically taking the day off.
That was the reaction from my team. Was like, really? It's on the middle of the day. I'm like, yeah, and yeah, good times. But she done graduated. But it made me think. People are just turds. They just make me angry so often in such common courtesy kind of ways. They get up there, and the principal says, "Hey, we got like 500 and something people. We're gonna go through their names pretty quick. So please do not yell and cheer after your kid's name because you will be yelling and cheering over the name of the graduate after them, and their parents and them deserve to hear their name said."
Oh, that's never gonna work.
That's never going to work because people are freaking asshats.
Right.
Yeah. And that's. I know sometimes people look at certain rules and are like, "Oh, that doesn't apply to me. I'm going to, for example, speed and then maybe get out of the ticket by,
paying extra money."
Paying extra money or something, but because rules don't always apply to me. Oh, my dog's good. I won't have my dog on a leash because my dog is good. Well, our dog is a scared dog who gets super aggressive, and your friendly dog who runs up because he's a good dog. You know what? That causes something instant. So I think so many people think the rules don't apply to them, and in general, they're just being inconsiderate, and it makes me angry. So I spent a good portion of that long 500 names being read out just
seething
as people are just freaking hollering, and you can definitely hear some names that people don't hear because someone thought, well, it's my kid, I have to yell though, because
right.
Anyway,
and that usually has like cascading effects because once one goes, then the next one feels they need to be louder.
Oh, they were definitely getting competitive, and who could be the biggest freaking turd?
Yeah,
Anyway.
I mean, like you want to be proud with them, but at the same time, you're like, can you please let me hear my kid? Thank you. Have a nice day. Yeah. Well, I'm happy that your daughter's graduated. Hopefully you
Yeah.
didn't actually kick her out of the house. Um,
No. No,
no,
I did not.
no, still at home. Any plans for after graduation?
Well, she'll be starting Wig Tech in the fall to get her first year or so before going off to SCAD is the current plan, doing art stuff.
Okay.
It's what she loves, art. So hopefully she can turn that into money. Hopefully.
Scat is
I
in
Georgia?
yeah. It's Savannah, right? Yeah.
I believe so, yeah.
Yep. I've been there. We usually go to Savannah about once a year. So it's a neat little area to visit.
Well, we had a LAN party there, didn't we?
No,
Where
no,
was
not
it?
in Savannah. No.
What was it?
It was definitely not Savannah because that's like 2 hours from my house.
Yeah.
It was definitely not Savannah.
What?
Blue Ridge. We've done Blue Ridge.
That's it was Georgia.
Yeah, Blue Ridge, Georgia.
I thought definitely. I'm not thinking of Blue Ridge,
Okay.
but
We've
you can
done
go
Blue
over
Ridge,
your
Georgia.
thing while I look it up.
Okay, fair enough. Anyway, SCAT is there is a campus in Savannah, and that is 2 hours north of me, thereabouts.
Oh, yeah, there it is.
Yep. Um, so not super eventful on my end. We ran a bunch of errands on Saturday, just trying to get things prepped for a long vacation. And for those that are listening, some of the later episodes, 9, 10, and 11, will be pre-recorded, and hopefully I can upload them from where I'm taking my vacation. Um, but and then Sunday we went to the beach. And hung out at the beach for a few hours. So first beach trip of the summer. Water was fantastic, and it wasn't unbearably hot on Sunday. Saturday sucked. I think it was over 100 degrees here in Florida, but Sunday wasn't too bad in the shade or in the water. Sandra got out her stand-up paddleboard for the first time and went like out into the ocean. And as she was going out, I'm like, I hope she remembers how to paddle this thing back. Um, because it could suck to have to swim out there and drag this thing back to shore. It was out there a ways. So
Well, at the very least, they turn into a really large paddle board, right?
yeah, yeah. Um, if you know how to paddle them, and it had been a few years since we had done the stand-up paddle board, and so I'm like, does she remember how to paddle this thing and get it to come back? Because the current was pushing her out to
Oh
sea.
no, my point was even if you can't remember the quite stand up paddleboard thing, worst case scenario, old school, hold it like
Well,
kind of behind it
oh yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
go.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Still a flotation device. So
Mm-hmm. Kick your little heart out. Yep,
yep, yep, yep.
yep.
It was Augusta. That's where we went.
Okay, but not Savannah.
Not Savannah,
Yeah.
Augusta.
Well, when you're hanging out at SCAD, we can hang out again because I will happily make that drive.
Yeah, my wife made a trip and visited the campus and got a tour and all that good stuff, and it was quite nice.
Did
Not
you?
quite cheap, but quite nice.
Yeah, yeah. Did you go to? There's a pizza place that we always eat there. I know you didn't go. Did they? What is it? Vinny's? Vinny Van Gogh's? No, don't know. Don't remember. All right. Well, if you make it to Savannah, Vinny's Van Gogh. Or for those that are listening, go to Vinny's. It used to be cash only, but I think they take card now. Anyway. Well, cool, man. Well, again, congrats. It's exciting. How many more? That
Just one,
just one
one of
more.
us. Yeah.
One more out the nest. All right. Well, good luck. All right. Well, so this week we're going to talk. I know that the original topic, if you were paying attention, was going to be remote work culture or remote protections, things like that. I'm actually going to change it up a little bit. So we will talk about some remote access, but it's going to be in the context of Snowflake. So I know everybody is talking about the Snowflake breach, and I'm sure you can read up on it. And if you're interested, read about what happened there. The really short version that I probably won't do enough justice to, but the really short version is that Snowflake is a cloud hosting platform, right? That hosts a lot of different companies' data, and there was a breach of, according to them, not the platform, but some of the tenants that were on there, including Ticketmaster and other high profile companies. The long and the short of it right now, and this is still under investigation. The long and short of it is that it looks like there may have been some accounts that didn't have MFA enabled. And John, it reminded me of things that we talked about last week from Zero Trust, but it also reminded me of things that we had talked about in Asseco and a lot of the previous breaches, right? So it really got me to thinking, like, this is one of those classic examples where we know what the security best practice is, right? Right. It's turn on MFA, turn that feature on, use SSO if you're a company. Like we know that that's the security best practice, and yet some folks or some people decide to not do that. And why do you think like that those features don't get turned on?
Uh, I'd say majority cases is just that's with all the security features, business has to always make the decision between like actually being a business and making money and doing it right. Um, so if you write, so there's two people at play here, as we were kind of mentioning earlier, right? There's the platform who made it optional
Yep.
for MFA to be enabled, and then you've got the consumer who's using their platform who obviously didn't enable it. So which one are you asking about? Because
Uh,
it's much more clear to me from the platform perspective. Well, they're doing it because, well, having features but not requirements makes it a little bit more likely that you'll get some customers who maybe don't want to do a thing one way or the other because you got to make money. Um, but as
yeah.
a consumer, there's no freaking good reason unless you've got customers you think it'll alienate. But I mean, they're all businesses. You've always got to ride that line. You can't. You can make. What's the adage? Shut off the power, put it in a closet, and you'll be secure, or something like that.
Yep.
I've
Yep.
heard the expression. Great, you're not going to make any money, or have absolutely no security and maybe make a lot of money for just a little bit until you're screwed.
Until you're
So
screwed.
you've got to ride that line, and that's in my experience. Now, sometimes there's the ignorance, but I think that's less and less the case, right? Like we saw that in Asseco all the time. Where so before you got there, we we would go on site, we would find problems, we would have an out brief with project managers and other people, and we'd be like, "Here's your stuff," right? And then we would, here's the stuff, and we would say, "Yeah, this is bad. You should fix this, and you should fix this." And then we'd check back, months later, and basically, almost without fail, the first handful we did nothing. The
Right.
developers, I want to be clear, they always wanted to do the stuff because once you showed them how the stuff really worked, and you showed them how to basically hack their own code and explain how the stuff really worked, they were all on board with doing it. But product isn't going to just let them do things instead of making a fancy button that's going to the feature that the customer wants. And so we had to shift and just start scaring the crap out of everybody in order to get them to do anything.
Yep.
We had one that was, oh god, it was such a horrible thing where they had a um, they had a single sign-in between their two systems, and one system had a full sign-in, and the other one had it was using the other one as their single sign-in. But all it was, when you clicked on the link, as part of the request to the other system, it included in the URL
No.
the
No.
user
No.
ID of
No.
who you were, and the other system said, "Cool," and you were that user. That was it. There was no there was nothing on that thing, and we noticed this, and we were like, "Holy crap! Okay, let's try 1, 2, 3. Oh, great, we're now an admin, right? Because the first ones
Sure. Sure. Sure.
created are
Sure.
going to be admin." So we did that, and we were like, "Holy crap! This is the worst thing I've ever seen," and it was not an insignificant system. So we went back and we told people in charge at that point. We were like, "Hey, this isn't one we can just sit on. This is a bad thing on a big system." So they pushed back, and the project managers and everybody were like, "No, no, no, that's
Oh,
you'd
everything's
have to
fine.
know this, and no, you're," and they're just full of crap. They're just trying to get their budget and blah blah blah. And so we basically we had the same boss, luckily, and so our boss went to the boss of like the whole organization and said, "Hey, let's get together." So I got up there. I think it was I don't know if Tim was a part of it. I don't think he was, but we were gonna do a live demo, and they didn't want on their test system. They wanted on the real system. So
Oh,
I'm in the corner on there. They got us, sharing
no.
a screen up there for all the big wigs, and we just did the same thing. We're like, 1, 2, 3, there you go, and we just looked at what we could see on their live system and what we could had access to, and the boss told everybody to get out except our boss and their boss, and then
Got fixed?
Brian actually helped them write a new login, and they were fully amenable to fixing everything. But I mean, we had to shift our strategy to scaring the piss out of everybody because some of this is just voodoo, and people think, it's not real. It can't really happen.
So I think that's the interesting thing is like that mentality hasn't changed, but the scale that it is needed has, right? Because we did the same thing when I was on a Seiko. Like we went in, Tim and I would find some vulnerabilities in whatever app, we demo it. Sometimes they'd fix it while we were still testing, which was annoying.
Yeah.
But
Oh.
but good too, right? They cared enough
Yeah.
to fix it. But we'd have to go in and actually, generate some of that good old FUD, right? That fear, to show them, the actual breach. And it reminded me of one of the vulnerabilities I researched while I was at a Seiko, which was the Target breach. Long ways ago. At this point, like that was 2013, I want to say, Target breach. So we're looking at like 11 years. When the rest of the world was using chip and pin and Target, and none of the stores in the US were, right? And it took that breach for Target to go, "Hey, we're gonna change. We promise. Look, we're implementing chip and pin." And then you watch the rest of the industry go, "Yep, chip and pin across the board." Um, and so it's always amazing. Like it's that same thing that you're describing that still has to occur. MFA has been around for a good long while. And if it was implemented across the board or made as a requirement, it sounds like, again, research is still being done, but it sounds like the Snowflake breach might not have happened, instead of making it optional. So I think that's the really interesting part is like it seems like for us to have these big shifts, there always has to be something that forces the change, which is unfortunate in some cases. You
It's
end up
not
with,
unique to this industry, though. It's like any, for lack of a better term, societal change, right? There has to be some catalyst.
I guess,
It doesn't just smoothly happen.
it doesn't smoothly
Right, you can
happen.
go through history and you can mark off items and events that happened that woke people's eyes up. I mean, you don't have to go back that far to find videos. I watched one today that was Australia. They were interviewing random people about their um, a good portion of the country, their whites only immigration policy.
Hmm.
And we're just asking. This is like I think mid 1960s, and they're just asking people, like, "Hey, do you think this is something we should go, something good should we keep?" And the vast majority were like, "Yeah, and I mean that wasn't that bloody long ago, right?" And
Yeah.
so events happened, and it's a different world. Well, I guess it's not a completely different world, but there's still some places. But
Yeah. Well, I guess major events or time, right? Because it was same kind of thing. I was thinking like seatbelts, just time. I don't think there was a major event that made seatbelts kind of proliferate everywhere. Time and some regulation. Um, there you go. That's probably the other impetus for change, right? Regulation.
I did see a meme the other day that had a motorcycle cop pulling over someone to give him a ticket for not wearing a seatbelt.
Oh,
Um,
ha,
but that was kind of funny. Yeah.
ha. That, yeah. Anyway, yeah, that is funny. So I guess regulation. We can either regulate it or, you can choose to change after a major event. I'm trying to think, like, is there any other good catalyst for change?
No, it's usually someone getting screwed or someone taking a stand
Yeah,
and saying, nope, this is what we're going to do.
fair enough. Fair enough. Well, John, you're a busy individual, and so am I. At least at work. I do want to move into the next topic so that you and I've got some time for gaming because that's one of the ways we keep our work life balance, which is the next segment. Right, is maintaining some work life balance. Um, so I'll start and say that I try and draw a pretty hard line at when my day ends. I say try because there's still some flexibility there. If there's major things going on that I still need to be involved in, of course I'll stick around, or if there's meetings that are scheduled late. But to try and keep some of my work life balance, I'm like, okay, 5 o'clock, I need to be getting ready to head into the. You can't see my hand. Anyway, I need to be getting ready to head into the gym, right? And go work out, do whatever lifting I'm going to do for the day, run, row, whatever I need to do, right, to stay healthy. But I think that's one of the boundaries that I've drawn to try and keep some good work life balance. Um, and I think that's really the trick is figuring out like where your boundaries are, what's important to you, and then drawing those boundaries and making sure that others are aware of them. Um, at least that's what works for me to try and keep some work life balance. And I was really bad about it when I was younger and, trying to do all of the things. I think just as I've gotten older and like more maybe senior in my position, it's been become easier to say, nope, this is where I'm stopping. Because, my health is important or my family is important. Work is also important, but not necessarily more than all the time than the other two. So John, is there any tricks you have for maintaining work-life balance?
I think it's definitely harder now to work from home, obviously, because this is my same computer, keyboard, everything that I sit in, I'm right here is the same stuff set up I use for work.
Yeah.
I just have, three, highly recommend them, HDMI switches for my monitors and a USB switch so I can a la carte my monitors for my work computer or my home without actually having to do any RDPing or anything weird like that. But I draw a sort of line. Uh, I don't work late if it's, oh, let me just reverse it. I will work late if I feel like I should have got something done
That's fair.
or it's not done because it's my fault, right? Like if something went awry and it was my fault, or I for whatever reason I feel like this is on me. Like I really should have been able to get that done. Uh, or I will work late if it's just super interesting, right? Like
Oh,
if you're
yeah.
going down a rabbit hole that's just wickedly interesting, why would I stop doing that? Obviously, unless I have to go do some family thing, I'm gonna keep digging in. But otherwise, I purposely don't if because I think that's a big part uh, of not so Agile Scrum, right? You've got all these different teams doing this. If you've got teams or managers who are pushing people to just like work extra hours and all that good stuff, it kind of screws it up and it's something you have to just maintain. So if you're biting off more than you can chew consistently and you're having to work late to do that, then you've got an artificial number and you're basically, I've always looked at it as you're paying your people less. Hey, it's a nerd.
Hey.
Anything you may or may not say right now is on live on the interwebs, Miss Nerd. So you know.
Oh, all right.
Hello, hello. Yep, you are live.
But yeah, if you end up having to just get your job done, work 50, 60 hours a day, and we're mostly all salary or a week, and we're all salary, you're not getting a good wait or a rate, right? I mean, you're just being paid less than someone who doesn't have to work that much or doesn't work that much to get their job done. So
That's
yeah,
fair.
I don't have a yes. I try to draw that line pretty seriously, except for those cases. So.
Yeah, yeah. I think yeah, I'm the same. And I will dive in though. Like if it's a really interesting project and it somehow like hits all the same gaming nerves and everything else. You're like, okay, I'm really into this. I will happily like put in a ton of hours because it feels the same as gaming, right? Or and it's hitting all the fun little dopamine receptors. You're like, yep, I can do this for a while. Um, I think I've worked a couple of things over the weekend. So it was that or Satisfactory, and I was actually getting more of that like dopamine gaming hit on the work project than Satisfactory. So I'm like, well, I guess what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or the other case, like I said, almost every time I've shifted, almost every time I tend to work at places a decent amount of time, and when I usually have shifted jobs, it's a pretty drastic shift. Um, so like when I was in San Antonio, I was like I said, we talked about this on another podcast, which I guess isn't real yet.
It's not.
Um, it's not,
It's
but I
2
will
weeks
talk about
away.
this in the future. The I started off COBOL on a mainframe and doing some statistical analysis stuff with SPSS and SAS and some other stuff like that. And then poof, I was doing C++, right? Pretty drastic difference. And then poof, I was doing Power Builder, right? And whenever you make those shifts, like back to the whole like feel like you should have got it done. Well, I felt like I needed to get it done, but my knowledge gap needed to be filled.
John, you have a guest behind you.
I do have a guest. You're live on the interwebs, and I. So, and then after I left that, I did security for like 3 years or so, and then I left there. I did .NET. I'd never done .NET, right? So the first a good 6 months was a good portion was me just figuring out how .NET worked right well enough to get my damn job done, right? And so here a lot of my time is spent because I've never used AWS much before coming here. Everything was Azure, so that stack being different. So yeah, if I feel like I need to do it because of I should have been able to do it, then yeah, I'll fill that time.
Yeah. Well, also previewing a future episode, it also scratched the itch of learning something new. So I'm sure that encouraged you to like dig in a little bit more.
Oh yeah.
So nerd, I know you're joining a little bit later in the podcast, but we were at the segment where we were talking work-life balance and what we do to try and separate the two. John and I are work from home. I am staring at my work setup right now, minus the microphone. Work laptop is literally like right there, closed. Right. So this is where I work. So to John's point, and I think mine is, trying to draw a line, going, nope, this is where the work stops, and then I'm gonna go do other things. What is it that you do to try and keep like some work-life balance?
Well, it's a lot easier for me because I work away from the home and my work is a lot different than the work you two do. So, like, there isn't really much of a need for me to bring my work home. So,
That's fair. I mean, and I think part of the work-life balance is, doing things that are away from work, that keep you centered. And I think I mentioned that I work out most days of the week. And that's a stress relief for me. And I try and keep the work life balance. Family does like movie nights on Fridays. It's another way of like I do things in IRL, real life. We'll call that part the real life, right? Versus the work life. Um, so is there anything that you might do like away from work that kind of keeps you balanced? So it's not all just work, but there's the other part of nerd that you get to explore.
yeah. So, like, all of my hobbies I do outside of work. I just got back into painting with doing paint by numbers. That's really relaxing and I enjoy it. I've got some friends and we've started hanging out more recently and doing things together. And I take Amelia with me to go hang with them, and they adore her. And visit mom, and I do that with Amelia sometimes too. And it's really all I have going on, really.
Yeah, but I mean those are important things, and I think that's
Yeah.
one of the things we want the viewers to know, right? Is that making sure you've got those activities that are away from work with friends or family, or just stress reliefs, whatever that happens to be. yoga or lifting or crocheting, painting, as you said. John, are you still rowing during lunch
Uh,
breaks?
yeah, that's what I use as my cardio-y thing. I was gonna kind of speak to that. I think at least if you work from home, I think it's super important to have an almost ceremonial type things like that indicate like this is the end of the day. Or for me, I work out at lunch. That's one of my favorite things about working from home is it's so much. Whenever I've tried to work out after work, life always happens, and there's something I've got to go do. I got to take a kid to this, or I got to. Something's always happening.
Yep.
Um, but lunch, I can be like almost every day. I can be like, nope, done with stand up. Because we happen to do that in the middle of the day. Done with that. I turn off my notifications and go work out for an hour. But back to the earlier point, today there's like I don't know half dozen apps we have more lambdas and other things that all touch the same database, and I had just updated it to like a much newer version, and I had migrated half of them over, and I really didn't want to leave it in a state where
Uh-huh.
half of them were pointing to the other one, and so I ended up not working out today because I took a super late lunch, and I didn't want to work late because people were all that, so I didn't end up working. But Rocket League is actually my end of day ceremony now.
There you
When
go.
I'm done, run over. The first thing I do is I play until I lose. Whenever I'm done with work. So
But playing till you lose, does that include the first match?
mulligan on the first. If I lose the
Okay.
first one, I get
Okay.
to play again. But if it's the second, third, whatever, then it's one loss and I'm done.
There you go.
So at least 2 games.
That's not a bad end of day ritual.
Yep.
And it keeps you kind of like time boxed
Yep.
so that you're not doing
Now,
it until
exactly. I
forever.
do that. I'm done. I'm over on my main computer or my personal computer. I'm done with the day, and it's kind of my little signal, my little ceremony for the end of the day.
You,
I
you've
loved
you've hit all the
Tim's.
switches to put it over to your other monitors, and yeah,
Yep.
that's awesome.
I loved Tim had a ceremony. I don't know how long he kept it going, but we both talked about how we missed listening to audiobooks on the way to driving to work.
Hmm.
The majority of our audiobook listening time was that.
I know where you're going
And
with this.
he was big into American Truck Simulator and had his old VR setup, and which is fun in VR. Obviously, Tim always had a fancier setup than the rest of us,
Well, yeah,
but he said he would spend half an hour or so in the
commuting.
morning. Like
Yeah,
his commute was
yeah,
virtual in American Truck Simulator, and he would listen to his audiobook, and it was like his ceremony in the morning to kick off his day. I thought that was kind of neat.
yeah, yeah. Everybody was happy to ditch the commute, and Tim's like, you know what? I miss the commute.
Oof.
Yeah. But I think it's different if you're, gaming and such, and it's not actual traffic. Somebody cuts you off in the semi, you can technically just boop, 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 boop. Anyway, well, that's cool, man. And I think that's a good thing to kind of wrap on is that end of day ceremony, something to say, I am done for the day. So if you're working from home, something that goes, yep, this is the end of the day. Maybe even something to start the day. I mean, Sandra and I during school time, when Abby's at school, have like our own little ceremony, depending on when our first meetings are and things like that, and when we get out the door. But we always like have breakfast together, watch a little bit of TV, and then about 9 o'clock or so, 8:39, we'll be like, all right, and we've got to go off and start. So kind of a morning routine to kick things off, and then something that says, yep, we are done at the end. So I think that's my little parting advice is to have those ceremonies. I may have stole John's because he's just said that, but John, is there anything else you wanted to add?
No, I think it's important now. And I think it's if anyone who's in any sort of managementy role, I think it's important to force that on your people and not try to make yourself look good because you run your people to death. And
Yeah,
most managers I've worked with do a good job of that, I think.
and I think that's another good call out is that your team will follow what you do. So if you are working late, your team will as well, and you're risking burning them out just by those behaviors. Nerd, anything else that you wanted to impart to the viewers before we call it a stream?
No, not really. I think I'm good.
All right. And Nagel, I want to acknowledge that I see you here. but we were literally wrapping, and I don't want you to have to feel like you have to catch up. So I'm acknowledging you're here, but I'm also going to end the stream. So that's all for today's episode of the In-Secure-Ity Podcast. I know it was a little brief, probably about half the length of a normal episode, but I still hope that you enjoyed it and got a little bit of information about the Snowflake breach and just general like cybersecurity breaches as a whole, and some work-life balance tips along the way. If you're still listening and you haven't clicked follow, please do that on whatever platform you're on. And until next time, stay secure, stay secure, and stay connected. I'm Drew Thompson, signing off.